Entergy is proud to support programming on LPB and greener practices that preserve Louisiana.
The goal of our environmental and sustainability initiatives really is to ensure that our kids and future generations can be left with a cleaner planet.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.
One of the reasons for this, frankly, is history.
The challenge for some Americans to get vaccinated.
We don't have a First Amendment right to violent protest.
How the Capitol Hill protests differ from demonstrations in the past.
We have a tourism-based economy, and it brings a tremendous amount of tourists here.
What carnival season cancellations mean for the state's bottom line.
This is where it's at.
A new lease and Grand Isle's forever battle with the Gulf.
Hi everyone, I'm Kara St. Cyr.
And I'm Andre Moreau. Much more on those top stories in a moment on this week's edition of SWI. But first, a big announcement today involving retired Lieutenant General Russell Honore.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has asked General Honore to head a review of U.S. Capitol security in the aftermath of the deadly riot there last week.
The general will review every aspect: infrastructure, command, and control. He is best known, of course, for stepping in to lead recovery after Hurricane Katrina, and he's a regular contributor here at LPB.
Also this week, Governor John Bel Edwards extended the state's modified Phase 2 orders for another 28 days.
And he's also calling on state employers to allow as many workers as possible to stay home and work from there. The coronavirus continues a steep climb. Now a check on other headlines making news across the state. The U.S. House of Representatives Wednesday impeached President Donald Trump for the second time in 13 months, making him the only president to receive the rebuke twice. Among Louisiana's delegation, only Democrat Cedric Richmond voted for impeachment. The state's 4 Republican members, Steve Scalise, Mike Johnson, Clay Higgins, and Garrett Graves, joined most of their GOP colleagues in opposing it. It's extremely unlikely Trump will be removed from office through impeachment, though. The Senate will not reconvene until January 19th. That's the day before Joe Biden is inaugurated as president. For the 9th time, a court has ruled in favor of the governor's coronavirus orders meant to slow the spread of the virus and save lives. That's according to a statement from Governor Edwards. The 5th U.S. Court of Appeals Wednesday upheld rulings from 2 lower court judges in a suit involving 21 Lafayette and New Orleans area bars. The Fifth Circuit panel rejected the argument that the closure ordered by Edwards was unfair because it allowed bars with food permits to remain open. The governor's office also announced a major disaster declaration approved by the White House. This relief package is for destruction caused by Hurricane Zeta in October. Direct aid will go to people and areas impacted by the Category 3 hurricane, which made landfall October 28th in Lafourche Parish. Big week for LSU and science. The university got a $9.3 million grant from the Army for a 4-year study about the hazards climate change will pose for armed forces ops in the coming decades. We're talking intensifying rainfall, more frequent storms, and rising seas. A main focus for LSU will be modeling coastal conditions to help guide climate planning at military bases that are deemed at risk from hurricanes and sea level rise. An LSU physics professor received a patent for the invention of a method that could improve breast cancer detection at a lower cost. Professor Joyani Day and colleagues say the radiation of the phase contract X-ray compares to that of a conventional mammography, but unlike the conventional, it sees more and could help doctors better detect and locate breast cancer. This week, Shreveport's first measurable snowfall in more than 3 years shut down roads, schools, and offices, but it was a coming out party for more than 300 chimpanzees at Chimp Haven. The chimpanzees at the world's largest chimp sanctuary apparently love the snow that blanketed the landscape of their habitats.
Also in the headlines, the wife of the Congressman-elect Luke Letlow, who died of COVID-19 just days before being sworn in, will run for his congressional seat. Julia Barnhill Letlow says carrying on her late husband's legacy was her motivation to join the race. She will run for the 5th District congressional seat, which represents both central and northeastern Louisiana, in March. Louisiana is now on alert for possibly violent protests at the Capitol building, but what makes a demonstration dangerous? I spoke with attorney Lisa Avalos on how the incident in D.C. could be a model for unlawful protests.
What started as a gathering to condemn an election quickly took a turn for the worst. America watched as a protest turned into a riot at our nation's capital.
You know, the First Amendment is critically important. We all should support one another's rights to assemble and to have their voice heard, but obviously it's critically important that they do that in a way that is peaceful, nonviolent, and in accord with the law.
Governor John Bel Edwards says he's on alert. It's been nearly a week since the incident happened, and now there's a nationwide concern over copycats. Here in Louisiana, the state police have already been notified of a possible threat in the days leading up to Joe Biden's inauguration. In a statement, the state police wrote that they are, quote, aware of the planned protest at the state capitol and is working closely with our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners to coordinate security protocols. But the fear isn't rooted in the protest itself, but how it's done.
We'll protect your right to do it. But at the same time, we're asking you to make sure that you follow the law.
But exactly how does a protest reach that point, the point of breaking the law?
At the moment that I was aware of anything, things had already gone too far.
Lisa Avalos, a professor of law, says there's a few points that differentiate this protest from others in the past, and a lot of it comes down to intent.
If somebody has posted social media posts indicating that they think it's a good idea to go to the Capitol and kidnap Mike Pence, or to hang Mike Pence or behead Mike Pence, some of the things that these protesters actually said, that could help to prove an intent to do so.
Of course, social media isn't completely reliable with proving intent, but Avalos says that it can stand on its own if you couple it with action, which is what law enforcement saw in D.C. People threatening to charge the Capitol, and some even coming with weapons. Avalos says the intent part is one way that distinguishes these protests from the ones in Minneapolis for George Floyd.
What the First Amendment does not allow people to do is to protest in a violent way. We don't have a First Amendment right to violent protest. We don't have the right to commit crimes.
Avalos says the best way to keep protests from going downhill is to adjust the rhetoric and keep in mind that violence isn't protected under the First Amendment. In her opinion, the most effective type of protesting you can do is the kind that's peaceful.
In my view, the most effective form of protest is nonviolent direct action, because there are a lot of people who are turned off to a cause when they see violence.
The FBI and Louisiana State Police are already working on plans to make sure any protests stay safe and nonviolent. For security reasons, they would not share what those protocols are.
Operation Warp Speed and the CDC adjusted recommendations on the rollout of the coronavirus vaccine changed a bit. Anyone 65 years and older now eligible, but that's not happening in our state. The governor says the state remains focused on those 70 and older, plus healthcare workers and frontline essential workers.
To be very blunt and very clear, it has never been as bad as it is right now.
Interim Assistant Public Health Secretary Dr. Joseph Kanter says COVID has never been more prevalent in Louisiana than it is now, across all 9 regions and 64 parishes.
It's all 64 parishes. All of our 64 parishes are in the highest category of community transmission risk, according to the CDC. Percent positivity for the state is well above 10%. Hospitalizations are above both of our previous spikes. And what is more frightening than that is looking at the numbers. We've not yet seen a suggestion that we are peaking and going down. So we know we still have some epidemiologic effect from the holidays ahead of us. We know that all the transmission that occurred over New Year's, for example, and then the subsequent second and third generation transmissions from that, of course, have not come yet.
Kanter stopped short of saying another spike on top of a spike could overwhelm resources to care for the sick. That grim reality is clashing with efforts to get those next in line vaccinated. The pace the state is administering its allotment of COVID-19 vaccines has improved. We were among the states in the bottom 10 last week for getting shots in arms, moved to number 23 among states this week. This, as U.S. Health Secretary Alex Azar says, the feds will now send out vaccine based on how well states can vaccinate people.
I think the state's doing a good job of moving vaccine out and getting vaccine to end users, and certainly the vaccine providers, hospitals, clinics, and pharmacies are just doing a tremendous job under not easy circumstances because, as the governor mentioned, we don't get a lot of advanced notice of when vaccine is going to be allotted to us. So what we ask of a provider, so to say, which is a tall ask, is with very short notice to line up appointments and use that vaccine before it expires. It's not easy, and they're really doing a tremendous job.
As of this week, State Health says 209 providers are receiving vaccine to distribute, most of those pharmacies. In addition, hospitals and clinics are receiving it, with all vaccinations by appointment only.
I want to thank the public for making appointments, for calling, for not going in person to a location hoping to get vaccine. You won't. If you do, we have clear instructions to clinics and pharmacies that they must be doing this on an appointment basis, no walk-ups accepted.
There are a number of people, including healthcare workers, who are resistant to getting vaccinated. Jan Moller, director of the government watchdog Louisiana Budget Project.
Surveys show the group that is least likely to take the vaccine in the United States is African Americans, Black people, who make up a large chunk of Louisiana's population, and particularly the workforce in Louisiana nursing homes. And one of the reasons for this, frankly, is history. America has a long history of using Black bodies to conduct medical experiments and testing. And even today, there are a lot of studies that show Black people receive inferior health care in this country for no other reason than the color of their skin. In this case, however, there's clearly a lot more risk to being unvaccinated than there is to taking the vaccine. Any vaccine carries some small risk, but the risk of not being vaccinated is, of course, that you can get COVID and potentially die, but also that you can pass it on to a lot of vulnerable people.
The state health department is spending $475,000 on an ad campaign aimed at promoting the safety and efficacy of the available COVID-19 vaccines. Plus, federal money that's part of the recent stimulus bill will make its way to states for this purpose. The only way to move past the pandemic is to reach herd immunity, with about 70% of the state and global population vaccinated. Getting there will be a challenge.
But I think this is going to have to be a message that gets repeated as often and in as many places as we possibly can to let people know that this vaccine is safe, that it is effective, and that the only way we get our economy back on track is if we get enough people vaccinated that people feel safe once again going about their daily activities. We cannot have a functioning economy without herd immunity, and the way to get to that is through vaccination.
We've heard about the vaccine being the light at the end of the tunnel. Well, there's a long stretch of darkness still to go.
Just a few days ago, we reported our second highest daily death total since the beginning of the pandemic, 105. I wonder how many of those 105 would still be with us if they had decided to turn down that invitation to the Christmas party, or better yet, had that party not happened, or if they hadn't visited with grandchildren, instead found some other way to communicate. I would encourage everybody to understand that the best, most sincere way to express our love and appreciation for others right now is to not engage in the behaviors that are likely to cause them to catch the virus, the disease, or to expose ourselves to it.
I also asked the governor and Dr. Kanter if the state is planning to incorporate the findings of a COVID-related taste test developed by a Baton Rouge sinus specialist. Dr. Henry Barham pioneered the test, which is proven to predict COVID outcomes and severity. LPB was the first to report the findings.
I think the challenge is taking that information into something that's actionable. And we have pretty good data right now on who is more likely to get sick and efforts to direct therapies like monoclonal antibodies to them. I think there's a lot of room for improvement and refinement in that. And items like that I think are going to play into that. I think that's going to happen over the next few weeks or months or so to say.
Since our report, Dr. Barham's office has been swamped with people wanting the taste test. It is now available in Baton Rouge at the Airline Highway location of Gulf Coast Occupational Medicine. It's a drive-through taste receptor assessment test, Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. The cost is $60.
As we get closer to carnival season, it's clear that we won't have the Mardi Gras most of us are familiar with. I spoke with the parade leaders and a councilman about how parade cancellations could impact our economy. The energy in New Orleans is magnetic and infectious. It catches almost everyone in the crowd as the good times roll through the street. This is the Zulu Parade in 2020. The organization's president, Elroy James, was walking the streets that year. This is him leading the parade.
You just don't know what you're going to see from year to year, and I think that adds to the excitement.
Each year, thousands of people come to New Orleans to bask in the excitement James is talking about. Not just for Zulu, but for Rex, Elks, and Bacchus. But in 2020, being in a crowd of this size was unthinkable. COVID-19 was just coming into the public's awareness. At this point, most people didn't know about it, including James and most other parade presidents.
No message had been sent down to the crew captains, or Mardi Gras leaders that there may be some exposure.
The Louisiana Department of Health identified Mardi Gras as one of several super spreader events that made Louisiana a COVID hotspot. And the crew of Zulu paid the price dearly. 12 members would die from the virus.
If this is diseases affecting Black folks, we're a Black organization.
Fast forward months later, and Louisiana, like much of the country, is still suffering under COVID-19's weight. In November, following another surge of the virus, New Orleans officials decided parades would not be permitted in 2021. That's a huge hit for the city and the rest of the state.
We have a tourism-based economy, and it brings a tremendous amount of tourists here. So it has a really significant financial impact.
Jay Banks is a New Orleans city councilman for District B. He says thousands of dollars are pumped into the city from the tourism alone. That's not including the money locals also put into Mardi Gras. For example, the Zulu Social Aid and Pleasure Club spends about $8 million annually to support it. That's a budget for the functions and coronation balls. It takes about $2 million to get the parades together, and that's not including all the money crew members spend to get their throws, or their costumes, or anything else they may need on the float.
When you talk about Zulu's impact, and when you put the multiplier behind it, our $2 million of investment is probably somewhere around a $14 million impact for this organization alone.
And Zulu is just one crew. Take that and multiply it by some 30 other crews that roll in New Orleans. And if you want to see a broader impact, look at all the carnival celebrations that are canceled in different cities. Baton Rouge lost Spanish Town among several other parades. Point Coupee Parish canceled all their carnival events for the year.
Look forward to next year. Hopefully we will be out of this and we will be able to go back to having big, huge parades and public gatherings with people 12 rows deep along the parade route.
It isn't clear yet just how much Louisiana stands to lose after yet another big event is canceled. But the financial blow of carnival season is one the entire state will feel. Some Mardi Gras crews are looking for alternative ways to celebrate this year. Bacchus is using an app for a virtual parade, while Zulu was looking to do something a little more traditional. They'll release updates the closer they get to Fat Tuesday.
It took just over a month, but Grand Isle right now is about as strong as it's ever been, which often means strong until the next hurricane sweeps across. But coastal restoration leaders are working on some fixes that may not wash away with the next powerful wind and waves. The 2020 hurricane season left the island weak and vulnerable. Tonight, it looks out on the Gulf of Mexico with more solid footing. After Hurricane Zeta, the fifth named storm to strike the state last year, threatened Grand Isle's very existence. Cutting into the heart of the island, crews went to work to rebuild its shattered levee system. It was originally built in 2014, and the mostly sand structure was mostly gone. It has returned, stronger, bigger, and better, and coastal protection leaders knew time was of the essence.
The timeline for the federal government to get out here to do those repairs, in our mind, was unacceptable. And so we, at the state level, were able to come up with about $7.5 million to expedite the repair on the beach and dune portion of the federally authorized project. The Corps of Engineers did complete 5 segmented breakwaters that are in the immediate area right here just off of the beach in the Gulf. But this is an area that was obviously a main concern of ours during hurricane season.
In just over a month, Grand Isle, especially the West End, looks dramatically different, with the West End Beach Nourishment Project nearly complete. Many hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of sand dredged from Caminada Pass now make up a wide beach and dune with a peak elevation of 13 feet. Rudy Cimino is the CPRA's Chief of Engineering. His team put together the bids, the engineering, and the design. Advanced preparation meant they could begin as soon as hurricane season ended.
And then we were able to start construction in early December, about a month ago. Since that time frame, they've steady been pumping even through the holidays. They pump 24 hours. This is a 24-hour operation. You'll see lights on the beach. The process never stops. They get about 30,000 yards a day. You know, we're sitting here in January of 21, and hurricane season is June. So we knew that we had to get a beach in place. We had to get the dune repaired in that time frame. Obviously, we started this process in the fall, understanding that we wanted to get it quickly done. And it's not just hurricane season, hurricanes that impact this area. It's some of these large winter storms and the spring storms. So that's very important. We knew we had to get this beach in place. A month ago, we would be in about 4 feet of water right here. And the waves literally break on the levee, on the dune.
For Grand Isle Mayor David Kemmerdell, it's a victory in a never-ending battle to save his island.
This is paradise. Louisiana. Listen, it's amazing the people that came this summer with the COVID. You get husbands and wives that's in a subdivision, and the husbands put them a place here, get them an ice camp. They stayed all summer long, the kids, and everybody had a good time. You can't go to Destin and throw a cast net, catch shrimp. You can't go to Destin to catch a trout, and you can't catch a crab. But I guarantee you this evening, right now, he's a fisherman. He said he'd love to be fishing right now. You catch you some trout on them rocks. The water's muddy. I'm looking at it right now. You probably could catch some shrimp. A shrimp boat, they're going to be coming in the next few nights, working the area. This is where it's at.
This is what makes the sportsman's paradise here in Louisiana special. You've got tens of thousands of people that come to Grand Isle every year to go fishing and relax and go to the beach and things like that. So it's an important area of coastal Louisiana, and I think that's why you see the sense of urgency from the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority to do everything we can to protect this special place that we know is Grand Isle. And the good news is that we don't plan on stopping here. As soon as we finish this specific levee repair and beach repair, we're going to start conversations with the Corps of Engineers and our congressional delegation about putting even more material on this segment of levee and this beach, actually extending the segmented breakwaters in the Gulf across the entire perimeter of the island, and then perhaps even putting some sort of small seawall out into the Gulf that would actually allow for the levee and the beach to be protected even further.
Vital to see that work happening on the island. LPB is now accepting nominations for the 26th annual Louisiana Young Heroes program.
Nominees must be Louisiana students in grade 9 through 12, schooled or homeschooled, and not older than 18.
To learn more about the Louisiana Young Heroes program or to submit a nomination, go to lpb.org/heroes. The deadline for entries is Monday, March 15th, 2021. And everyone, that is our show for this week. Remember, you can watch anything LPB anytime, wherever you are, with our brand new app.
You can watch LPB News and public affairs shows as well as other Louisiana programs you've come to enjoy over the years. And please like us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
For everyone here at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Andre Moreau.
And I'm Kara St. Cyr.
Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Entergy is proud to support programming on LPB and greener practices that preserve Louisiana.
The goal of our environmental and sustainability initiatives really is to ensure that our kids and future generations can be left with a cleaner planet.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.